The alien princess wept as I took the blow. Her empire named me their hero. The storm of fire lit the alien sky like 1,000 dying suns. Warships tore through the heavens, their engines screaming as they traded beams of light that could shatter continents. I had no reason to be here, no stake in this war between empires. And yet fate, cruel or kind, had thrown me into the center of it all. The ground trembled beneath me as I stumbled through the ruins of what had once been a royal city. Towers of silver lay in heaps of molten slag, their graceful spires broken like the bones of giants. Smoke choked the air, but through it I saw her, Princess Lira of the Australian Empire. She stood amidst the rubble, her sapphire armor cracked and scorched, her crown hanging loose around her pale brow. Her people called her the light of the stars, but now her glow was dimmed by grief. Around her lay the bodies of fallen guards, their energy spears shattered. She was alone, and I was the fool who ran toward her. "Princess!" I shouted, though I doubted she even knew my name. A foreigner, a human stranded when my transport was shot down days ago. I had no right to stand near her, much less fight at her side. Her eyes widened when she saw me, desperation breaking through her usual regal calm. "You shouldn't be here," she cried, voice trembling. "They want me. Run while you can." But I didn't run, because behind her from the smoke came a figure, massive, armored in obsidian plates, wielding a blade of burning plasma. The warlord of the Karak, sworn enemy of her empire. He strode forward like doom itself, every step cracking stone beneath his boots. Princess Lira raised her weapon, though her hands shook. She was strong, yes, but I could see her body failing, blood trickling from her temple, her movements sluggish. The warlord would crush her like brittle glass. And in that moment I made a choice. "Get back," I said, pushing her aside. The warlord's blade swung down, a blazing arc meant to end a dynasty. No. I stepped into its path. The heat was unbearable, the energy tearing through me like fire made solid. Pain flared so bright it became silence, became nothing. My knees buckled, but somehow, impossibly, I stayed standing, shielding her with my body. I heard her scream. Not a word, just raw anguish. The alien princess, who had never shed a tear before her court, now wept openly as I fell to my knees. The warlord sneered, pulling his blade free. "Pathetic human," he spat, preparing the final strike. But something had changed. The moment my blood struck the ground, the princess rose again. Her grief ignited into fury. With a cry that shook the ruins, she lunged forward. Her cracked spear found its mark, piercing the seams of the warlord's armor. He staggered, roaring, but she did not relent. She struck again and again until his burning blade fell silent and his colossal frame collapsed into the dust. Silence followed. A silence so deep it seemed the whole battlefield held its breath. I was fading, my vision dimming. The princess dropped beside me, cradling me in her arms. Her tears fell hot against my skin, mixing with the blood on my chest. "Why?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why would you do this for me?" I wanted to laugh. My voice was only a rasp, but I managed the words. Because someone had to. And because no one should die alone. Her hand gripped mine tightly, as though she could keep me tethered by will alone. I thought that would be the end. A human lost in a foreign war, remembered only by the alien princess who wept for him. But fate was not finished. When I awoke, it was in a chamber of light. Healers of the Empire had worked for days, using technologies I could barely comprehend, knitting my torn flesh and burned organs. Somehow, against all odds, I had survived. And when I stumbled out, weak but alive, I found an entire city waiting. The princess stood before her people, no longer broken, no longer alone. She spoke of what I had done, how a stranger with no claim to their empire had stood against death itself to shield her. She named me Starshield, a title spoken with reverence across the plazas and broadcast through the galaxies. Then she turned to me. Before all, she lowered her crown, bowing her head. "Our hero," she said. "Not of Astrael alone, but of all who dream of freedom." The crowd roared, their voices rising like thunder. And in that moment, I realized something simple and profound. I had not just saved her life. I had saved their hope. The war was far from over, but its tide had shifted. And though I was only a human far from Earth, I had become something more. A symbol, a shield, a hero in the eyes of an empire. As the cheers echoed and the princess's gaze held mine, I knew the truth. I had stepped into the path of death, expecting only silence. Instead, I had found a place, a people, and a destiny greater than myself. And though the scar on my chest would never fade, neither would her tears, tears that had baptized me not in sorrow, but in honor. The healer's chambers smelled of starlight and herbs when I finally opened my eyes. My body was wrapped in strange glowing bands, my chest scarred but alive. Somehow, against every law of nature, I had survived. When I staggered into the Grand Plaza days later, I expected only silence. Instead, I found the city alive with voices. Thousands gathered beneath the repaired spires. At the center stood Princess Lira, her armor polished, her crown gleaming once more. Yet when her eyes met mine, they were not the eyes of a ruler. They were the eyes of someone who had seen me fall, who had held me as her tears ran like rivers. She raised her voice, carrying across the masses. This man, a stranger to our world, stood where even my finest guards had fallen. He took the blade meant for me. He is not merely human. He is Starshield, the protector of Astrael. The crowd erupted, their cheers shaking the plaza like thunder. I stood frozen, humbled, my heart heavy with disbelief. To them, I was no longer an outsider, no longer a stranded wanderer. I was their hero. Then the princess did the unthinkable. She bowed before me, lowering her crown. "You gave me back my life," she said softly, so only I could hear. "Now I give you a place among my people. Forever." The weight of her words struck deeper than the Warlord's blade ever had. For the first time I understood. I had not only saved her life, I had become part of her story, woven into the fate of an empire. And though the scar across my chest burned with memory, it no longer spoke of pain. It spoke of honor, of belonging, of destiny.